All right. So, welcome everybody. In today's lecture, we are going to see how to add in Excel, which is the sum function. Now, the sum function is one of probably the most widely used Excel formula in Microsoft Excel. And by using it very properly, you can really process a lot of Excel data in a very short period of time. And that's what we're going to see today. So let me share you the Excel file that I have prepared for this lecture. In order for you to see very clearly, let me zoom it out. You can zoom your Excel sheet or your workbook by pressing the Control key, as well as taking the scroll of your mouse backward or forward. So like this. I'm going to zoom it out, zoom it in, zoom it out. Yeah. So for example, we have a company which has its sales for the first quarter of the year, categorized by items. That company has, for example, shops in different parts of, for example, this data is prepared by the United States. For example, in Boston, it has shops of items this type. For example, this is the first item, 31T79. The item could be maybe sugar or flour or whatever it could be. Now, I'm just bringing this example because it has universal applicability, but you can use it in your own setting. You can take the example to reflect your own company circumstances. So that company has items that it sells in different parts of the United States. For example, it has in Boston, it has in New York, in Atlanta, in Chicago, in Houston, and whatever. It's not necessarily that they are in different towns. This is just for the sake of this example, right? So our aim now is to sum up the amount of items sold in the eastern part of the United States. And let's say, for example, just for the sake of example, Boston and New York are located in the eastern part of the United States. So I will add them and I will show you how to add it in many ways. So for example, in the east, let's say it's for Boston, I would say AutoSum. Generally, Excel uses or prefers the vertical column, but what I want to add is the amount of, the sales in Boston. So I will just select all the items in town Boston, and I would say enter. This is very fine. But for example, I will have items to add. Let's say the item name is 73 by, let's say, 73 by 75. Let's say the name of the item is 73 by 75. Now, if I have a sale of 10,000 here, it should be reflected here, but it doesn't get reflected, and it shows an error sign here. But although there is a data, but it's not tied to this result. So what the preferred way, if we have a continuous cell, let me delete this, is to click here and say AutoSum. As I said, Excel prefers what is aligned vertically around it. But what we need to do is select the whole row containing the Boston sales, whole row. So it has selected all the rows now, and I would say enter. So if I make another sale in another day, for example, let's say now 10,000 again, take a look here, 10,000, say enter. So you see it has now increased to 666,730. At another time, maybe after an hour, another client comes and he buys another item called 12 by 21. The cost of the item was, let's say, $20,000. Now we can see that it's going to be reflected here. So it's always advisable, if we have continuous sales of items, it's always advisable to select the whole row. See, if I click it, selected the whole row. But in other circumstances, the Midwest total, we might want to calculate the Midwest total. And that is containing two towns. For example, New York and Atlanta are in the Midwest. This is just for example. Those who have knowledge of the United States should not say that these towns are in the East or in the West. This is just for illustration purposes. So Midwest contains two towns, and I would say outer sum, and it will, Excel will, as I said, select the data which is very near to it, but my purpose is to add New York and Atlanta, which are in the Midwest. So what I need to do is select both the rows containing those two entities, New York and Atlanta, and I would say enter. Now you see it has added data for two rows, and if I add another cell here, for example, another item, another client has come and has bought the 73 by 75 item, and he's sold, he's bought 12,000 items, $12,000. You can see now it's reflecting. So it's always advisable to select the rows rather than the cells if we have continuous cells. But in other circumstances, we might have entities, for example, sales total, which are not consecutive, which are not on the same column, in the same column or on the same row. Now what I need to do is I will say auto sum. For example, in this case, we are going to add Chicago and Denver, which are, let's say for this conversation, are in the south. So I would say auto sum. I will go to Chicago and select the whole row containing the Chicago, and I will make comma, and for example, I will say Denver, and then I will close the bracket and say enter. So can we see now? This is the summation of rows which are not co-located, which are not near to each other. They can be distant apart. For example, let's say mountain total, and we say auto sum, and we could select maybe Houston and comma Las Vegas and say enter, and so on and so forth. So there is a way of using the sum, the auto sum function, in a very short way, which is extremely helpful in adding data which could be near to each other or in separate rows. By saying that, it's always advisable to select the rows if you have continuous sales of data, so that you don't need to rewrite the formula now and again. For example, if I click here, it contains two rows, and there is a seller, there's a buyer here buying the item called 73 by 75. For example, he would buy items at the price of 15,000. Now look the sales total or the mountain total. You see, now it is increasing. Yeah, so it's always advisable to add like that. The other way I want to show you is similarly, but not exactly similar. For example, I would say auto sum, but I would need to sum the salary of the employees, and I would just click here on the salary. There are around 742 employees, and it would add up. So I would just double click to see the value. Now you see, if I click here, it's salary. It's adding. Now I will control, and I'll press and control and the full stop sign in our keyboard, and it should show us the last item, which is so the 742. It's adding the 742 employees. Now, if we have got another employee in the bottom, we add somebody whose salary is, let's say, 20,000. Yeah, the data is going to be automatically updated. So it's also containing what? The last number. So it's always advisable to use the sum function in a very efficient way. Let me show you also in another way. We have the sales of certain items in different towns, in CA, for example, it could be in California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, or anywhere else. It could also be the name of the items. As I said in the beginning of the lecture, you can just change what I'm talking into your own context and use it accordingly. For example, I want to add all this data in one cell. So what I would do is I will go to AutoSum and select all this data. Let me make it a bit bigger. All this data and say enter. Now this is the summation of all this data. If I click here, you can see. Now if I change, for example, if I change let me make it again. Let's go there, AutoSum, and select all the data and say enter. This is our sum. For example, if in January it's written 33 sales in California, it was wrong. It was supposed to be 50. Now look at this. Look at this. Make it a bit bigger so you can see. If you click here, you can see the data there. But January it was not 33, rather it was 50. So now you see our total summation of the sales is it's updated directly. So it's always advisable to use the sum function, that, as I said in the beginning, is the most widely used Excel formula in a variety of ways, so that we can reap the benefit of using it effectively and professionally. Thank you guys. For more videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 o'clock according to GMT +3 local time. Thank you for today. Thank you, Sumur. Thank you for your usual presence and support. Samar Stefanos is such a wonderful guy. Thank you, buddy. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.